so helpful with those countdowns.
Yes.
Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to our 6th Newcomers Tournament. Here we have Joyful Rogue, Antelope, Dryad, and Windfox. And I'm Blues here with Death Tacticus. Yes, words are difficult. Okay, so we have double price glass this time, and a chemical colony.
So what do you think about this map?
I don't know, I was looking at the colony. I thought you were going to be looking at the map.
Okay, this map, I mean, you can find nomads, electronics is half, glass dots double.
None of it. Okay, there is a decent silicon location down in the southwest that would work for that.
Yeah,
As scavengers, definitely an option. There's a bunch of strong carbon everywhere. Aluminum's not too far from many of them. Plenty of water on the map as well. So if we're getting a scientist that just has iron, expansive that doesn't have iron, and a nomad, which is good.
Fox can get the last pound, so he gets an extra claim, and he can get black markets, private claim.
It's definitely a good thing a lot of the time, but if you are going to be founding last, you can't take that much time. It's a big disadvantage. So we have two scientists this game, both with just iron. That is going to be a bit of a problem. Steel did start doubled, so they're going to get off to a decent start, but without having access to any other resources, I'm not sure where they're going to go from there. And once steel crashes, getting this glass is going to be difficult.
They probably need to rush teleportation.
Yeah, never a spot you really want to be in. Especially this game, we have a chemical colony. That's going to make things harder. But I guess...
They probably saw the steel price and thought, oh, I want to go scientific and plant those 3 steel mills. But what are you going to do after that?
Yeah, Antelope is going for some water right now. Going to be a fair ways away from his HQ.
It's not too far.
A scientific HQ has been upgraded.
Also a geotherm though, and that's a bit troubling.
Don't want to go geos as scientific.
Yeah,
Just
having to pay that full 120 steel for a geotherm as a scientist or a robot is always just a big investment. A lot of times it can work, but it's going to slow you down a lot. If you have an alternative, it's usually good to go for that. Expansives mostly are the geotherm users or scavenger nomad, so they can really get a lot of their construction resource going. Anyway. Joyful Rogue going into glass, that's a pretty reasonable choice. He's already producing a ton of silicon, glass started expensive. The one downside to that, of course, is that he's making the upgrades for all his opponents a little easier. By selling down that glass, they don't have to spend quite as much buying it.
It's still high enough.
Yeah,
He's also already going into a geo. HQ level 2, yeah, well, he just upgraded, but...
Yeah, there is a reason why we normally recommend going for power on HQ3 instead. That's closer to the point where power starts rising to a decent level. At this point, no one's ever really going to make a significant amount of power money without controlling power for a long time.
I don't mind the move because they're like 3 steel factions and they all have steel mill. So power will go up faster than normally.
That is true, but for 2 scientists in particular, I feel like steel is their main source of income right now. So if they're going to power, which isn't really going to make them money in any reasonable amount of time, they risk stalling out, especially with glass expensive. I mean, they do have like these farms remote and stuff that are helping, but not quite enough.
I mean, I think Gisa can maybe make power money because he stole the hero from Joyful. So he's now making like 337 power money a second soon.
Yep. Windfox doing something that was not the greatest. Having that single reactor, he is going to fix it right now with that claim auction. But it could have easily just been a third farm. Food is still strong. It would have been just a lot better that way.
He knew that there was going to be a claim auction, of course. It would be better, of course, but it's
I mean, that is a joke, but even if it weren't a joke, you never know how far people are going to push these auctions, so that's not something you can rely on. Antelope is now making the power money, but very small amount. Getting some farms online now. Those are going to be strong.
Yeah, if he just gets teleportation soon, then he's probably in a really
right.
great shape.
At this point, having 4 steel mills down is probably a bit excessive. It gets in the way of the power money a bit, and you don't really need that much steel with every other steel user producing so much. It would be a good opportunity to move one of them into a patent lab. Hologram,
Damn,
goons, both not all that expensive.
And if he does that, then he can really win this game.
Yeah. Scientists having to rush teleportation is definitely a risk, but once you get there, it's just so powerful.
Fox is going into Battle Lab as scientific, so
the black market is online.
To see what he's going to research. No hologram throw. Probably should have done a hologram next to the steel.
Yeah, that's a way to make sure it's harder to spot out the patent lab. I guess, okay, Antelope used that on Mutiny Goon on that Geotherm.
Wow.
It's a nice little trick you can pull off.
I didn't expect that. That's nice. You're still making power money because of that?
Still a very small amount of power money. And again, still want to point out this steel being a little counterproductive in that regard, but it's fine.
He is upgrading really fast, and
yeah, his power money is going to run out soon though, just because life sport's catching up to that. But I guess he is moving into a ton of water stuff. The danger of just racing ahead like this is that you don't have those investments that you need secured, that teleportation in particular. So you might end up just attracting a lot of black market without being able to sustain your push.
Congratulations.
You can see that Windfox is going for teleportation, so maybe he's set up for late game.
Definitely a good choice. Would have liked to see a goon squad on the patent lab. It is interesting that everyone is a bit too focused on power to deal with the patent lab, or maybe they don't see Windfox as a threat. Either way, that is a mistake by the other players. Teleportation is secured.
Maybe Giza doesn't believe in teleportation.
Maybe.
I mean, he's still he doesn't have any depths because of power, so he can have this off base, but it's not optimal. So. And he's getting attacked because he's leading by a bit. However, Joyful is also on HQ level 4 and has an optimization sensor already. Started to upgrade the glass.
This feels like a bit of an odd choice for the same reasons I was talking about before. It's just not a market that it doesn't have any demand in the colony, so the more you upgrade it, it's just helping your opponents, really. You don't need to produce that much glass, essentially. Something like chems feels like a much more natural thing just because the colony is consuming so much, and as we move towards the late game, there's going to be a lot of research using these chems.
I mean, for one upgrade I don't mind. He just upgraded once, and now he's upgrading chemicals, so he's probably going to chemicals next. So... And the price is still high, and no one else is producing glass. There's probably no one else is going to produce glass, because I don't see any silicon nearby them.
Right.
Only one in the south. What you also can do is make it cheap now, so that no one is going into glass, is going to use their claims for silicon, and then you can just late game short glass.
I mean, that's kind of what you do against AIs, I guess. Against players, that's a bit more difficult. I mean, in theory, the players should be keeping an eye on who has silicon, how much silicon there is being collected. Because one thing that's very important is not to let someone have a monopoly.
That's true, but I see sometimes Geralt and Matra doing those last shorting tricks.
Yeah.
I despise.
You can definitely get away with it, but you shouldn't be able to.
This auction, how much would you bet on this?
It should go for quite a bit. It's a free claim with a strong optimization center on it.
If I was Giza, not too low, I would just bid 40k for this. It's an AA rating, so you can take some depth and just start upgrading.
Sold.
28k isn't too far off. It is a bit cheap.
What he needs to do is, with that, just go free chemicals and just start upgrading chemicals and then just snowball through that, but it's not upgrading anything at the moment.
You definitely can afford to upgrade stuff, so this is just a mistake. I'm not sure what his hacker array is planned to do, because he did build that. Perhaps glass shorts?
Yep, that's what he's doing.
Okay, now it's starting.
I'm surprised that no one bought a hologram.
Yeah,
It's not too big.
holograms can definitely be very powerful.
Looking at Offworlds, yeah, decent. Not super great because Oxygen is the launch and then will just go high really fast.
Yeah, definitely would need to be looking at upgrading Oxygen a lot right now if you're planning to go into Offworlds.
I don't think it's worth it because Onworld is still high enough. I would rather go for upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, but once you get your 3 in chems, for example, nothing else is all that crazy. You can, I think, start looking at Offworld. Because chems should fall off before too long. There's a lot of chemical production going on. Everyone has a triangle.
If I was joyful, I wouldn't do that. I would just start upgrading and hacking and then, like, start EMPing or, yeah, some kind of black markets. Like one guy like Ginza because he didn't defend himself yet, so he can just play him out. And that's like basically in Offworlds itself.
That is true, I suppose. Antelope is not set up all that well himself, just in terms of... I mean, he has decent territory, but it's all going to be shipping all game. I guess it's only pirates you can use against that, so you can't shut him down too much. But his patent lab just isn't getting all that much done. Nanotech is nice, but when all your claims are this far away from your base, you're not really going to be moving them around all that often, especially as a scientist.
I mean, with scientists, you wouldn't do that anyway. I feel like, I mean, you always need reactors and farms, so... And chemicals are fine. That's fine for me. The only problem is now that he's gaining a lot of depth because he's not stockpiling them. Which means he needs to pay for those life support costs.
Right, and the other thing is he's also... Well, I guess he's building 2 geotherms now. That's probably an overcommitment.
One...
As a scientist, I don't feel like you could spare 3 claims to power permanently. Could have done...
gone for cold fusion.
Cold fusion would have been an idea. Probably optimizing power is simpler. But I guess people are selling down water quite a bit this game. Anyway, Joyful and Dryad are both in strong positions, so is Windfox now. Off that teleportation.
He's going to upgrade a lot now, that's nice to see. He has electronics. I don't like him auto-selling electronics because no one is in electronics.
Right, that's definitely something that's hard to get used to, just figuring out what to auto-sell, what not to. I mean, the idea is simple. If no one else is, like you were saying, if no one else is in the market, then hold on to it, but easy to lose track of. He does have a hologrammed Offworld down. It's not doomed. He did pick up thinking machines as well, so it's going to be pretty solid. One
I
thing
don't think anyone has spotted it.
Right. Definitely one thing WinFox could have done is stopped auto-selling oxygen. Again, oxygen in particular, when you only have reactors to produce it, is going to be a resource that jumps up in price quite quickly when you're launching it. You need to be prepared for that.
Look, if you see those price jumps, you know that the Nomad is now building an Offworld. Because silicon just jumped high, glass and electronics just jumped high, so you know for a fact that the Nomad guy is building an Offworld, and you should watch out for that.
Interesting that he decided to build it on top of his hacker array in particular. There were definitely other options. Like just right under this goon squad he already has for the glass would have been one.
Or just on the aluminum. He has so much aluminum already. But yeah.
Plenty of options. Oh, going for 2 Offworlds at once.
He should first defend himself. He's
right.
Like,
he is in a bit of a vulnerable position while these are building.
It's probably still fine because WinFox didn't defend himself yet.
Right, and the only major source of income for WinFox is that Offworld. I suppose
I would bid on this if you don't have the rotation.
Sold. Our
that's going to be useful for Joyful with his 1,500 water. Definitely could have done something with return claims to get these water claims back into something more useful.
He still has 8 of them. That's way too much.
I mean, having remote reactors is not the worst thing when they're this close to your base, and you can crush any pirates that come down. So there is that.
That's true. Looking... I still see like 2 battle lamps that are not doing anything. You should just delete those. But you're not getting anything. Only cold fusions. This is also why I don't like to have a battle lamp like as a single building and nothing next to it. Because now it's just basically useless.
Well, for WinFox, I guess that could pretty easily be another Offworld or optimization center. With the thinking machines, that's not as big a deal. For someone like Antelopes is actually a patent lab still. Should be the optimization center it's hologrammed as. Anyway, at this point, Joyful, with his 2 Offworlds, is going to be outracing WinFox. WinFox made an interesting play there, but the problem is it's just too difficult to break through this silicon and glass control that Joyful had. This built up a very nice lead off of that, and the only other player with any silicon is Antelope. Well, now Dryad. Dryad just built 2 slant drilled highs. That's gonna kill silicon real fast.
Well, WinFox was consuming 4 silicon per second.
Yeah, with those 4 glass kilns, that's one of the reasons why you always want to be careful about producing things when you don't have the input resources. Sometimes you can make a decent profit off of it, but you also have to realize that you are giving a lot of money to another player while you're doing that.
The engineers have advanced our production.
I think Joyful has this in the back. He probably will win this one.
Yeah, at this point it seems pretty clear.
Well, no.
I mean, Dryad can maybe give him a run for his money, but...
I mean, yeah, no.
He doesn't have enough money yet.
Maybe if WinFox sells the stock of Joyful, Triad starts buying into him.
Right, it would need a lot of things to happen, and that's unlikely.
He's in D-depth, so his stock price is low, so no, I don't see it happen.
Yeah, there's a strong Nomad found, for a lot of reasons.
It's mainly because everyone ignored glass.
Everyone ignored that, and I mean, just even without that, the Nomad had the half-price electronics and double-price glass to work off. It was always going to be fast.
fast to everything and fast to off-roads, which he did. Scientific are always slow. He always needs like help with.
What a payout.
Needs help from someone else to like gain a victory from it. So it's, you know, at least that's how I feel about Scientific nowadays.
Yeah, they're definitely a bit slower moving through things without. I mean, especially if you're going off base as a scientist, everything's going to be much slower. You spend all that time shipping the buildings out. You have to work on getting those patents. It's just a lot of delays.
At these prices. Well, the game is over already, but I don't like to see these prices. $1, like free resources. I know it's full.
Yeah, there was a lot of auto selling of steel throughout the game in particular. And
I mean, it makes sense to do that early on, but
right. But I'm talking like HQ5, like when steel was $11, WinFox was auto selling it, things like that.
Really, that's like a really cheap off-road. So you need to pre-buy your steel if you can.
Yeah, I mean, WinFox in particular, I think that's bad from because WinFox did have the teleportation. There's no particular reason for WinFox to have all these claims adjacent. As this glass in particular, it could have been just on top of silicon. I mean, there are costs to that as well, but
successful off-road shipment.
Not
make room for the profits.
This game would have been useful.
I'm going to look at the black market screen. Almost everyone attacked Joyful, like 2 times. Joyful himself attacked Gek 5 times and Dryad 3 times, so it's still like expected. Don't know what is going to get attacked a lot.
Thing is, most of the freezes on Joyful were rather later. 1 sold 2, then 4, 5, 7. It was mostly mutinies. 2 mutinies early. I don't remember what the mutinies were on. No, they were on the power, right?
The power, yeah.
Which
slows him down some way.
It was useful to Antelope to get that power mutiny, but it didn't hurt Joyful very much. Power never went crazy because everyone moved into fairly early geotherms. And no one committed to enough power to make a lot of power money. Which is always a bit of an awkward middle ground to be in.
Offworld shipment
yeah, too many people are into power, so yeah, you cannot really make a play through that. Okay, well, Gissa has a lot of cash, but I don't see him winning against Joyful. Dryad is buying into Joyful.
It is possible, I suppose, if Joyful starts buying into Dryad, who isn't a threat at this point. But Antelope would still need like 900k to finish that, and that's not gonna happen.
Selling out, that's good.
Yeah.
Launch affirmative. Successful off-world shipment.
Now he just buys whatever buys 3 stocks into it.
Yep. And it's just more straightforward from here. Dryad selling out doesn't make sense, though.
You cannot concede in this game, right?
I mean, I assume since there are only 2 players left, you should be able to.
I mean, no, the tiebreakers is
Oh, it's time-based tiebreakers again?
Yeah. We don't have any mods enabled, so must be off-roads now, well, off-roads, great. Yeah. This game is pretty much over. Would just stop buying into Dryad and sell your own stock. Just to have this game go fast. Are you looking at the rules now, or?
I was looking at my stream chat mostly.
Oh, well that is
What a payout! You'll get all the money.
But yeah, not too much to say about this game. It is mostly just Joyful had such a better found.
I mean, it's Nomad.
Yeah, Nomad on Mars.
And scientific versus scientific. I mean, like, expensive should be able to do something against it, but Riot went 2 steel and 1 aluminum HQ level 1, so
right,
that
it was
doesn't really help.
Difficult, expensive found. So far away from the iron.
I'm just saying Salt or Sauron just buff scientific a bit more.
Pirates.
Yeah, they're going to do.
Hate those filthy bandits.
It's a gun, it's probably not enough, but... GG!
Yep.
Soul 9.
Still definitely saw good things from each of these players. Antelope making a nice attempt at playing power. It worked out okay. Maybe needed a bit more of a commitment to really race ahead, or to leverage that power money into patents earlier. Windfox making the correct push into the teleportation, just maybe not quite using the claims correctly after teleportation.
And in the auto-selling electronics was a big mistake, because everyone is going into Offworld, so you wanted electronics price to be high.
Especially since he went into the whole thinking machines push as well. Offworlds were going to be an important tool for him that would be... It would give him a pretty large advantage if he could use it well. So just like an optimization for some oxygen to Offworlds, I think he could have then taken on Joyful Rogue and maybe won that battle despite being a bit behind. But
he probably should have defended himself first.
Yeah,
I mean, have this game go longer, because then you will get help from Triad and Gissa more.
That is true. As it stood, I think defending himself wouldn't have helped too much since it was 2 Offworlds to 1. But it would have been better.
Yeah, that's... yeah. Nomad's just too fast sometimes.
In the right circumstances, there's just so little you can do about a strong Nomad.
Look, what you just do is just impede the silicon and then they cannot do anything.
That's why you gather so much silicon right away that getting EMP doesn't matter.
He has a medium and he has 2 lows, like, that's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he could have found it a little differently so that he would have been connected to the water and silicon directly. He would have been able to get a nice triangle of silicon going and not have to ship in his water. It's a little bit of a placement problem there, but not a big deal.
Yeah, that also. Look at how much he upgraded silicon. It's like absurd.
Yeah, well...
I mean, it's understandable because the price was like 250 or something, so...
Right, and it is also something that was pretty necessary with how he was playing Glass. Glass being a constant drag on his silicon price.
Yeah, so that's why you impede the silicon, because then you're not only like disabling the silicon, but you're also disabling the glass production.
Or you could just go into silicon yourself and contest those markets. That also works.
You can just ban nomads.
Yeah, just being nomad is the path of least resistance. Anyway, let's get our next lobby hosted. I think we've kept people waiting long enough.